Welcome back to Building Insight. My name is Quentin Glenn, your host, alongside my co-host Amy Mareko.
Hello.
With us today is somebody near and dear to our company's heart. This is Tyler Harvey. He is the Business Territory Manager for Fishman Flooring Solutions. Correct. Okay.
Nailed it.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
One and done.
Tyler, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me on today. So super excited to be here.
Yeah,
That's
welcome.
Awesome. That's awesome. So Tyler, I appreciate you being here. We, obviously we do a lot of business with your company. You guys, provide a lot of the sundries for the projects that we're on. You've been working with the flooring, or as a vendor for the Flooring Pros for how long now? 3-4 years?
Yeah, going on my 4th year. So.
Okay,
That's crazy.
Awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. You've your company has helped us grow in a lot of ways. So I'm happy to have you on. I definitely want to learn a little bit more about you, about your company, and we can kind of just start there. So tell me who Tyler Harvey is. What do you do for Fishman Flooring Solutions, and kind of how have we gotten to this point that we're at?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Greenville, South Carolina. My father has been in the flooring trade for a pretty long time now, followed by my grandfather before that. So growing up, used to work at the mall. Really liked selling Costa sunglasses and coolers, and this is just a little bit of my backstory. And I told my dad I wanted to go into sales one day.
Yeah.
And he told me straight up, if I ever want to go into flooring sales, I needed to install. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to install, but I ended up installing for Bonnets Incorporated in Greenville, just being like a summer helper, and really loved what I did there. Fast forward to after college, went to Clemson, graduated with a supply chain degree. Worked at Total Quality Logistics for a year. Really liked sales there. Learned a lot about sales there, and that kind of transitioned me into working at Fishman. So Fishman was looking for somebody up in Charlotte at the time. My wife now was living in Charlotte, so moved up here and took on the opportunity, and really had no idea what the construction business was, and didn't know a lot about floor covering. But now I know maybe like 10 to 15% because it's a revolving door of just opportunity to learn. So yeah, Fishman opened up in 1919, like I said earlier. We started as L. Fishman and Son. Albert Fishman started the company and named it after his mother and him. So the L stands for Leah, Fishman and Son. In 2013, we became an employee-owned company. So now we have an ESOP and all that. So every single person from our drivers to our warehouse workers, all of our branch managers, our operations team, salespeople, all the way through executive leadership are part owners of the company. So we became Fishman Flooring Solutions in 2013, and it will stay that way into the foreseeable future. So let me talk a little bit about what I do, particularly for the company.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a business manager, and I cover the multifamily, residential, and builder segment in Charlotte. I do have a few commercial accounts, so it's a lot of moving parts at once. So on the multifamily side, I really try to target, more sundries. How can I help my customers get the job done in a timely manner, but also use the right products for their jobs and help save them on cost? Not necessarily price, but how can I impact your guys' cost, whether it's service, time on project, the headaches, a lot of different things like that. And then on the retail side, pushing like LVP and laminate and hardwood, sports flooring, a lot of stuff like that. So it's trying to attack the business at all angles. So it's really a lot of different moving parts and variables, but basically we try to sell anything from the finished product all the way down to the concrete slab.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah, you guys offer a pretty wide breadth of materials. Again, stuff that we utilize all the time. And I want to go back to one thing that you had stated about your company. I'm always interested when there's an employee-owned company or an employee-owned facet. I feel like in the construction and in the services industry in particular, that's starting to happen more and more. So as a beneficiary of a program like that, like obviously, you're part owner in the company. Talk a little bit about like what that means to you, like why there's value in that to you, and like how you see that being rewarded back to you, obviously the longer that you stay with Fishman.
Yeah, so I would say working for an employee-owned company is definitely a game changer, and the reason why is because of the culture. The culture of working for a company to where it's a win-win environment. It doesn't matter if I'm talking to a business manager up north or a business manager that lives in Ohio or even, the warehouse managers. I mean, the relationships amongst the employees is so strong, and everyone cares about what they do, and they want to perform to the best of their ability, because we all win based off the profitability of our company, right? So it's like, even like our drivers build relationships with warehouse guys. A lot of the warehouse guys that I talk to while making my daily visits to different customers say, like, Lorenzo's great, Don's great, I like dealing with Jeff, I like building relationships with these guys. So it's really cool to see the impact that our drivers have when they're making deliveries in the market. But not just that, our branch manager, Chad, Karen, Carmen, all of our branch personnel have relationships with our customers, and it just helps drive that business forward, because it's not just us out in the field building relationships with our customers. We have a relationship throughout the whole entire team, and it's just that winning culture environment. Culture means everything to me, especially being a younger person. My generation really cares about company culture and that work-life balance. We work extra hard because we're all employee owners, and we care about the success and the future of our firm. So I would say that's like really the big benefit of working for an employee-owned company.
Talk about team first. Like, that's
Yeah, definitely.
100% team first, that mindset and mentality of, you, like you said, if we win, everybody wins. So that's, I don't know, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that, the owner of our company, Jason, and I talk about often is, what you're touching on with culture and how important that is. And, I'm sure in your seat, you mentioned like work-life balance. As an owner of the company, Jason and I talk about this concept of work-life integration, right? Because you have a vested interest, and I'm making assumptions here, but like, because you have a vested interest in the performance of the company, your desire for the company to do more, grow bigger, grow faster, exceeds that of somebody who doesn't have that same motivation. And as a result, you're willing to do things outside of what, a typical sales rep or a business manager would go out and do. Would you say that's a fair categorization of that?
Yeah, I would say that's super fair. The caveat is also trying to have that balance, right? Like
Sure.
you said, but it's giving 125% within those hours that you're operating. And I would say the biggest thing is really just setting the expectation to the customer, especially since I first started. Like, when I first started, I was working late nights, long hours, and I read a book called Boundaries. I forget the author, because I'm terrible with names of authors, but that book helped me realize that, like, hey, like, I need to have like a hard cutoff time. That way I can enjoy life with my wife and do other things outside of work and live my life. But still, like, if I'm working from 6 to 6, how can I utilize and maximize those hours throughout the workday? So it's a hearty, healthy balance. But yes, I believe whenever you are an owner of a company, you want to see everyone win. You do put the extra hours in, the extra work in. So
That's interesting. So, talk to me a little bit about, obviously you talked to us like where your career path has taken you like thus far. Again, like, I'm fascinated by this employee owned side of things, but like for you, what does a career look like at, a supplier, right? Like, we're in the trades over here, right? So, our career path looks like where our clients are going to take us, right? Like, if I have a whole bunch of multifamily projects that we got lined up, my career path is going to gear towards multifamily. Where on the supplier side, obviously you have the client base, but like, again, for you as like an individual, like, what are the next steps for you, right? Like, I'm sure you have larger aspirations than your current role, right? So talk to me a little bit about that.
yeah, so right now, again, I'm a business manager. I have over 100 accounts in the greater Charlotte metro area, so I cover a relatively smaller space comparative to other guys, but I touch a lot of points of contacts in that space.
Yeah.
But I would say in the foreseeable future, definitely working my way up the chain, either vice president of sales or potentially the CEO. But there's a lot of steps to get to that particular position, and it takes a lot of hard work. Like you said earlier, like, you have to have the invested time, you have to have the invested hours, and actually have that caring for the company, right? So I would say the next phase after this role would be a regional business manager, which is having a team of guys working underneath me. And really, I'm super excited about that, because I care about fostering that culture, right? Like, I've already fed into the culture, that Fishman's provided me, but like how can I take that culture and forge my own team to help us grow as a company overall? And that's what I think I could do a really good job at, help drive change in that particular position, which would help us grow, right? Because there's areas to where we can grow. There's areas to where we're really good. How can we focus on these areas to where we can grow and take that and run off with it? So after that regional business manager role, the next position would be either director of business development, or that person controls what products we're bringing in, what products we're pushing out. Like, hey, what are we hearing out on the streets to where we can feed it back to Jay, who's actually my father, to tell him like, hey, can we particularly take interest in like PVC shoe molding? Like, what are the odds of us bringing this in? That way we can help these multifamily clients out and give them a better option. That way they don't have to go to Lowe's and pick this up or something like that, So yeah, I would say just working my way up step by step and learning more about the company as I do that. So,
And it's not funny, but you mentioned, having a team and teaching them the culture that you are trying to, have with your team that you currently have. But I also think your knowledge, like I call you the Rain Man all the time. Like, I think you know everything. Like, you remember everything. Sometimes you'll come in with reps and I feel like you know the product better than they do. Like, no offense to whoever that is, but like, I think just passing on the knowledge that you have of all the products. Like, we don't think twice when we have a question. We're like, just call Tyler. It's fine. He'll know. And like, and if you don't know, you get the next person on that can, you'll call in the Schluter rep or whoever. But I think you have so much knowledge with the product, and that's something you should be super proud of. But like, I could see you leading a team and doing that because, yes, obviously getting that culture that you want and, spreading that, but also your knowledge and like continuing to grow that with the company. I don't know if all the reps are as knowledgeable as you are, but I don't know. I think that's something to be said for.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of reps at our company that are way more knowledgeable than I am. I know
crazy to think.
what I know,
Yeah,
but I also don't know what I don't know.
Sure, yeah.
And the guys that have been around for so long, like I can use them as a resource, and that's what I kind of hit on earlier, right? Like there's guys in my region, I have no idea what this customer just asked. Like, how can I figure this out pretty quickly? And I'll pop a text into our group chat, or I'll give one of our guys a call. And they'll be like, oh, you got to do this. And I'm like, man, I've never heard of this. But every time I hear it, I just have that wired brain to where it kind of just
sticks like glue.
Sticks like glue.
Get it?
Yeah.
See what I did there?
That's how he knows everything. He's got a big old group text that he fires it into. You don't get to see the group text.
It's behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's behind the scenes.
That's
but
funny.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff I do know,
Yeah.
I know pretty well because I've talked about it a lot and I'm passionate about it and I know it works and I care about it, right? Like and that's what's so cool about our company name. It's Fishman Flooring Solutions. We provide solutions to our customers, and I'm very passionate and I care about that. I don't want to go into someone's place and try to be a pushy sales guy and sell a product that I don't believe in. I'm going to sell
100%.
something that I know that's going to get the job done, that's actually going to last, and that's going to make your guys' clients happy, because then it's a win-win relationship from the end user to the flooring pros to Fishman all the way up to the manufacturer. So how can we work together as a team instead of just trying to push products and grow our number, if you will?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think what you're talking about, and again, like I'm going to go back to the same well of the employee-owned company. You're talking about a high-performing culture, right? Like your team is high-performing, and I think that's a unique attribute to this type of company setup, in the sense that everybody's got a buy-in. So you don't get the people who are passively just floating through, right? You get people like yourself who are like entrenched within trying to learn more, because the more that they learn, the result, like it's tangible on the other side. Like they can see what that means for them, right? So what is, kind of in that same vein, and you've mentioned it a couple times, but like, what does a good culture mean to you, right? Like what are the attributes of a strong culture, and how do you foster that?
When it comes to culture, I mean, that means everything to me personally, because I want to feed into a company that has that good culture, and I'm not going to name drop where I used to work before, but, there it was more of like a dog eat dog culture. Like if the person to the left of me was succeeding, that means I wasn't succeeding, and like we all need to feed our families at the end of the day, and it is what it is. But that wasn't necessarily fun because I had to work extra hard to make it happen there. But with this job, it's like we all work interdependently, which is a team of people working together but separately at the same time, right? And having that interdependent culture is so key, because we don't have to be crossing each other's paths and taking from each other and doing all that jazz when we can just work together as a greater team. Yeah, it means a lot.
Well, and I think that's a common struggle, especially with like the growing segment of businesses. Like you have a couple of high performers who traditionally do most of the work, right? And I've worked in sales, I've worked in operations for larger companies. What I tend to see is there's people who people like look up to, who idolize and assume that because that seat is being filled, there's no room for me. And the concept that you're talking about being, kind of an interdependent team, once you kind of cross that threshold as a growing business, it's really just about the preservation of like keeping that, right? Because, if like the water starts to separate from the oil and you see things growing out of control like that, that's when you start to lose culture, right? That's when you start to, you get that water cooler talk, or, the group text outside of the main group text where they're talking about the person on the group text type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting concept, and I think as it pertains to businesses like our size and and smaller, if you can really focus in on building that team and making sure that team is all in it for the same reasons, then you're gonna end up succeeding for sure. So that's cool. That's learning something new about one of our biggest clients. That's fantastic. So kind of switching gears a little bit, you mentioned earlier a book that you read, Boundaries, and I've read that book as well. I too am not familiar with the author, so same boat. But I'm a self-development junkie. I love reading different types of books just to get different vantage points. What do you personally do for self-development, like outside of the office? Like what do you focus on? Are you a big reader, big podcast guy? What does that look like?
Big reader. Yeah, I don't necessarily watch a whole lot of TV. I don't necessarily listen to a whole lot of podcasts, but I try to read about 30 minutes a day. It's a habit I picked up after college. And traditionally in college, I never really liked reading. But then I knew after college that if I wanted to continue to grow and learn and grow myself, I needed to do something different, So I started picking up self-development books from Barnes & Noble. I've read a lot of books over the past 3-4 years since I've graduated from college. It's been longer than that. But yeah, so, a book I just finished, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I picked up a book at the conference I was at last week, Selling Through Tough Times by Paul Riley. I haven't cracked into that yet, but the book I'm reading now is The 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication by John Maxwell. So I try to read a good bit. It's usually typically towards the night, and I have a little reflection journal, like what points or what takeaways can I use from this book and, use that in my day-to-day practices while working in my job. How can I differentiate myself from the pack, more or less? So I read a lot.
That's awesome.
That is great.
He also listens to the Building Insight podcast.
Yep.
Small plug there.
No, I think that's great. And like I said, I'm a big reader too. One thing that I think is super important, and I've just only recently started getting into this as a recommendation from Jason, our owner, is rereading the same books that you've already read. So I'm a big note taker. If you get a book from me, like it got stuff circled all over the place, lines drawn into the margins with little tiny notes and things like that. And one of the things that I've recognized in that exercise is you start to pick up on things that maybe you understood in the moment, but you weren't quite necessarily ready to hear, right? Like you understand the concept, but you weren't ready for the application, or maybe even the reverse of that, right? It's like you didn't really know what that means. It doesn't really apply to me right now. I'm not going to dig that deep into it. But then 6 months, a year and a half down the road, you pick it up again. You're like, oh my gosh, like this is what I'm going through right now. Have you ever had any of those like types of moments? Like, I mean, do you reread your books? What are some of the lessons that you've taken away and that have kind of helped you get to this spot?
Yeah, I've reread quite a few books actually, because I mean, I agree with the concept that you just said. It's like the application, like why read to read just for fun when you can read to apply? There's a big difference, and there's a big learning curve in that. And it took me a while to learn that, because at first, like, I struggled to read for 15 minutes a day, but now that I've grown that reading habit and I've learned that, like, oh my goodness, the process of applying some of the things I've read actually causes me to grow. How can I do more of this? But at the same time, it's like I can't do too much at once, because then I'm like over bombarding myself, and then I'm just going to go back to square one. So I've tried to take it into bite-sized chunks at a time. So like Think and Grow Rich, I'm definitely going to reread again. I highlighted chapter 2 like all over the place. That's the chapter about desire. And it basically says like you got to have a game plan, right? And one thing that we do at Fishman every year is we create our own plan, like our own plan of business, and we get it approved. And like we have to make sure that the team's on the same page. That way we know this is the number we're going to hit. And when I first started, a couple of years ago, my boss told me it was going to take me 24 hours to do that plan. I was like, there's no way it's going to take me 24 hours to do this plan. I did it in 3 hours. Well, guess what? The next year I got smoked. My numbers weren't looking good. So the year after that, in December, I spent like 40 hours on that business plan. I calculated losses. I calculated wins. I knew where I was going to win, where I was going to lose, what business was going to stay the same. And I came up with that number. He was like, are you sure this is what's going to happen? Yes, because I dug into every account, saw every single product, said, I know I'm gonna lose this. I know I can win here. We have new products coming in. I know this is gonna switch. And I tied all those pieces together to allow that business plan to work for me. So it all comes down to that plan. Like if I'm not working the plan after I made it, it's so frustrating, because why make the plan in the first place, right? And like that, all those concepts that I just talked about with the plan, I've learned from also reading books. I'm like, how can I navigate and allow myself to grow as a person, but also in my current role, because there's so much to learn. Like I don't know it all. I know I'm knowledgeable, and I appreciate the fact that you acknowledge that, but I know like 20% of what we have to offer. Like we have so many different products, and like that's what differentiates the people that are really successful versus the people that are kind of stagnant and growing a little bit, because the people that are hitting those big numbers, they sell everything that's in the bag that we have to offer. Well, in the meantime, if I only know 20%, I'm only selling 20%, instead of the other 80% of products we have to offer. So am I really providing all the solutions to my customer at once? No. So how can I grow in that category? So there's so much room and so much market share to grab. It's just challenging to do so, because you can only take in so much at once, so.
Does your company do anything to help you guys like learn new products, or do they host training sessions? Do they do stuff like that for you guys?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we definitely take advantage of partnering with our vendors. We have our vendors offer, trainings like, Schluter's one of them. I know I've been to Ardex, I've been to Aliquippa. Our company will pay for us to go up there to learn about
that's cool.
all the products that Ardex has. Mapei has an MTI down in Florida at their headquarters, to where you can go learning about the products in the classroom, and then you can go see it actually installed in like one of their little laboratories and walk through the lab and understand the science behind the products and what makes them so great. So we do that all the time. And then outside of that, we have a website or an internal app called Fishman University, which you guys actually have access to as well. And it has basically a lot of different products that we carry, different subcategories like leveling or flooring or trims and whatever related to that particular concept. You can go in there and dig on it, and it will show a lot of the different products we have to offer. You can click it, and then it has a video, and then like all the different specs about it and how you can use that in real life, day-to-day scenarios to help us learn and grow. So
that's awesome.
Yep.
Kind of piggybacking off of Amy and switching gears more into like the technical side, like you're on the front lines of the flooring industry, right? Like you're learning about these products before they're hitting the shelves, and obviously we're the applicator in that equation. So I'm curious what types of trends you're seeing, where you see things going, from just like a technical standpoint, and what this industry is going to look like here in the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, trends I'm seeing right now, especially with LVT installation, is everyone's starting to wet set. They like the concept of wet setting their LVTs, and wet setting can kind of be a pain because it takes a lot of time, and installers don't like doing it. But it's like, how can we combat that? There's a lot of unique products that we have that we can use that are kind of like a half and half, like a half pressure sensitive, half wet set, but not necessarily. It's called a transitional pressure sensitive. So that's my main selling SKU is Mapei Eco 399, and it's a transitional pressure sensitive. It installs like a pressure sensitive, but after you install your plank, 48 to 72 hours later, it starts to firm up and it starts to harden up. It helps with indentation. It helps with heavy rolling loads. It also helps with dimensionally unstable products, and I feel like that's the biggest thing, especially on the multifamily side, is that a lot of the products that we get nowadays are pretty thin, and it's like if sunlight hits those products, and if you're not using a wet set or something that's going to hold those products into place, it's going to start to cup. It's going to start to buckle, gap, move, and shift on you. So we want to prevent those issues from happening. So I would say in the next couple of years, we're going to start to see adhesive manufacturers probably start to launch more wet setting adhesives to help combat the dimensionally unstable products. And in regards to the leveling side, just making, all the ANSI specs and stuff, that's kind of a little bit above my pay grade still. I'm starting to learn the ANSI specs and what makes one product better than the next, because this one covers this spec when this one doesn't cover this spec. So learning that, but it gets so technical, right? Products are always evolving and companies are always launching new things to come out with the next best thing to help make the applicator's life easier, and it's cool to see that, but it's like we get the news like, hey, this product's coming out, let's teach you about it, and then we hit the streets and we start to see like, hey, is this something that you guys are interested in? Like, what problems are you guys having that we can fulfill? And we can go back to the manufacturer and say, let's try to do this to help you guys out. So it's a revolving door. It's always a working thing. So
very collaborative too.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a big thing. It's all about collaboration. Like if I hear stuff out in the streets, like the manufacturers I partner with and trust, like I'll call the regional managers, I'll call my sales guys, and I'll say like, hey, this is what I'm hearing. Like, can we end up doing something like this? Like, how can we attack the market with something like this to help our applicators out,
Absolutely.
And they're like, well, let us think about this, and we'll get back to you. I know Maxon's potentially going to launch some new products in the foreseeable future that's going to help big time on the multifamily side. I can't hit on anything in particular, but it's just pretty cool to see that collaboration working, because they care about their partnership with us so much to where they listen to our feedback, which, and again, at the end of the day, it all comes down to that partnership. Like we appreciate that partnership because it's a revolving door and it's a collaboration.
Yep. And it's only helping everybody.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. You make money, I make money,
Exactly.
they make money. Everybody's happy.
It's a
Better product,
win-win-win
happy
situation.
clients. Yeah, for sure.
Kind of on that same note, and I don't know why I feel that you're the guy to ask about this, but I'm going to ask you anyways. I was at the Surfaces conference in Las Vegas a couple of months ago, and I saw a robot that would be laying down adhesive. Like, I don't know, like, I'm sure there was some guy behind the curtain, like, pushing it with a remote control or whatnot, but like that kind of blew my mind for a second. I was like, wow, like what, like this could definitely be a thing here in the future. What do you think about the role of automation in like this particular trade, right? Like I know, again, you deal specifically in the flooring solution space, right? So, I know there are different ways, different trades can automate things operationally, but like when it comes to the actual installation, like do you see that as something coming to fruition here soon? Especially considering like the adhesives and that space?
That's a really good question. I would say automation is coming faster than we know it. Obviously, AI is hitting the market way faster than we know it. It's something I could definitely see happening, because one thing that we have lack of is installers. Like a lot of the installers I know nowadays are 50-year-old plus, and there's not a lot of young people coming into the industry. So as the old installers that are certified installers start to phase out and we start to bring the new guys in, there's going to be a huge gap between people that are knowledgeable and people that just picked up a trowel for the first time, So with the robotics and the automation industry kind of changing over, like just rapid change, it's going to come eventually. When? I don't necessarily know, but it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, but there's going to be robots that are using, a 3/8 inch nap roller, rolling primer down, and then a robot coming in right after that, using a trowel to smack down adhesive, and it's going to be pretty much perfect and precise, and it's going to allow us to do our jobs a lot easier. So it's coming. It's coming quicker and we know it. When? I don't know.
Yeah, listen, like I said, I saw it with my own two eyes. It looked like one of my son's Tonka trucks, just like driving down the hallway, making perfect lines the whole way back and forth. And yeah, it was just, again, I don't know why I felt the need to ask you that, but like I looked at it in disbelief. So, well, that's cool. I think, the last question that I have for you, Tyler, and it's something we'd like to ask everybody is, if you were to look back on your career and how you got to this point, what's the advice that you would give, 18-year-old Tyler? Like, what would you say in order for you to be successful or become more successful than you currently are? What are the things that you would do differently, or have younger you watch out for?
I would have networked more.
Yeah.
And that's the name of the game. I mean, people told me when I first went to college, like, you need to get out and network, And I was like, okay, like, I kind of thought I was networking, but I could
1,600 Facebook friends. Like,
yeah, like, I'm on
kind.
social media. That's good enough. But like attending business conferences, meeting people, because you never know who's going to be able to impact you and change your life, and then being able to find someone that's A, in the spot in life that you want to be, B, that's successful and that has the information to teach you. And if they're willing to coach and teach you and mentor you in whatever facet it is that you care about, like, that's the person you need to hold on to and build a relationship with, right? Like, all of our executive leaders, my boss, I don't even call him a boss, he's more of a mentor. I mean, you think I know a lot, Chris Keelar knows a lot, and he's kind of taken me underneath his wing. And one of the first questions I was asked when I was getting interviewed was like, how are you going to overcome the age gap? And I was like, dang, that's a good question. Like, I don't know how I'm going to overcome that age gap. And I was like, I just thought about it short and quick. I was like, you know what? Like, by working, because like, I know I'm going to answer my phone. And if I don't get to my phone, I'm going to call you back as soon as I'm out of my appointment. If I don't know the answer to your question, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to get you the answer to your question. And they were like, good answer, And
You're
it
like,
it takes that work. So like, giving myself as an 18-year-old advice is like, just be a go-getter and like, grind harder. Like, I thought I was grinding, but that's a mental thought, and we can stretch ourselves mentally and grow ourselves mentally within our own capacity more than we know it. So that's the advice I'd give, is just find someone that's willing to coach and mentor you and work extra hard. Because I mean, that's what got me to where I'm at today. Like, I didn't know it all when I first started. My boss may have thought I knew a lot because I installed, but when I installed, I wasn't taught the proper way. I was taught to dump a bag of patch on the floor, put my finger in it, pour some water in that little hole, and mix it up with a trowel on the ground. And that's not how you're supposed to do it. So it's like, and I didn't read the specifications of the buckets. Like, I just knew what was on the van and how it was done, and that's it,
Right.
So the technical side's way different. So yeah, just building those relationships and partnering with people that trust and believe in you and growing in that facet. So
That's awesome. Great answer.
Yeah, it is.
Great answer. Well, cool. Well, Tyler, I appreciate you coming in and joining us today. Again, this is Tyler Harvey. I'm Quentin Glenn for Amy Morecco. This is Building Insight. See you next time.
Yay.
Click.
Good job, Tyler.
thanks.
You're a sharp fella.